Hello, my friends. How are you doing? Thanks for joining today. All right, so let's have a nice live stream today about how can you make money with photography. Is it possible? Is it hard? Let's talk about that today. And of course, I also want to know about your experience in that area. So yeah, let's welcome the people who are here. Hi, Joey. How are you doing? Thank you for joining my live stream. And Tony from Essex, UK. Thanks for joining. Hi. Then we have Arno from Germany. Hi, how are you doing? Nick, thanks for joining. Where you from, Nick? Where you from, Joey? Let me know. Jens from Germany. Hi, how are you doing? Yes, where's Eric? I was thinking the same thing. Usually he always has the first comment on the first, how do you say, chat message, basically. Hi, Marvin from West Central Canada. Okay, interesting. Is this a place or is it like a region? That sounds interesting. Is it like South Africa? I mean, South Africa is a country, basically. Is it maybe, I don't know. Is it the name of a region is what I mean by that. And Ken from North Wales. Hi, how are you doing? Thanks for joining. Simon from the UK. How are you doing? Thanks for joining. Hector from Denmark. Hi. Tim from West Colorado. Hi. And Nick from Ontario, Canada. Hi, everybody thanks for joining. Joey's from Texas. Okay, awesome. Very nice. Okay, so today let's talk a little bit about kind of business. What is business? How do you do things? So I think it's interesting. I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding about how that works. So I want to talk about some of my experience, also talk about the kind of basic, how can I say, basic business knowledge that's out there. Of course, there's always other examples on how things can work. So this is not like 100%. This is like a, how can I say, best practice maybe, mixed with own experience, of course. So yeah. Hi, Chris from Belgium. How are you doing? Thanks for joining. And John from Miami. Hi. Thanks for joining. Okay, awesome. So let's get started. And I think the main, let's talk about the main problems first, maybe with finding or defining your business, what you want to do. I made a little list here. And so I think one of the biggest mistakes, and this is also like what I know from the time when I was still at university, when you learn about art, when you get this kind of education, and even after that, you know, even if you look at TV shows like Shark Tank, stuff like that, it looks like it's all about the idea. You need to have a great idea, and that is the business, which is not really true. The idea is important, of course, and it can have a major impact on how successful your business is, but it's not really about the idea, because everybody has ideas, you know? So if you can't make the idea work, that's not great. And if nobody cares about the idea, that's not great either, right? So that is one of the biggest mistakes on that people think they need to have a great idea. I think that's what a lot of people are held back by. By the way, I'm looking kind of to the left because my camera for some reason needs to be on the left side so it's centered. I think I will move it to the center because I feel really awkward looking to the left. Maybe the monitor is a little bit rotated. Let me fix this real quick. So now it's in the middle. And then maybe let me rotate the monitor. That, ooh, we still need the green screen in the background. There we go. Okay. Okay. So what is important instead if it's not the idea? Now, the main factor of a business basically is the question, is there a need? And then can you fill the need? This is how business works. So you need to first figure out if there is actually need there. And of course, if you can deliver on that, right? So, and this is what confuses a lot of people is when you say, try to find the customer before you have the product. And a lot of people are like, how would you do that? If you don't have a product, how can you sell them to the customer? It's not about selling anything at that point. It's just about figuring out, is there a customer at all? Is there any person who is interested in what you potentially want to sell to them, right? Let me look at the chat real quick. Natvaro from Egypt. Hi, wow, awesome. I love the Egypt. It's really nice. I have been there over 20 years ago. It's really beautiful. Thank you for liking my tutorials. That's awesome. Simon says I started 2 businesses during the pandemic. Both recruitment and going strong. Both in recruitment and going strong. Oh wow, that's pretty awesome. Okay, really cool. Right. So now, of course, the question is, how do you find if there's any customers out there? Now, this is basically the research part. Should be kind of the start of a business, is to figure out what are the needs, what are the pains out there. Pains are really important. Like, pain means what do people have problems with that maybe nobody solves, or what is requested a lot, right? That's a pretty important part about that. And you can find that out in online groups and online forums, stuff like that, when people write about their problems, or you can also look in the feedback that they give online to other businesses. What are the things they don't like about these businesses? Things like that is a good starting point, right? You get a good understanding because the main job is to listen to the customer and see what is it they need, what is it they look for, what is it they have a problem with, what is it they can't find a solution for, stuff like that. And this also has to do with photography, right? Because there's all kinds of photography, right? And it's not just like you have a camera and you point it at something and then that's photography. There's all kinds of different niches and things you can do, and there's a lot of subcategories that you can go into, right? So that is basically a very good starting point. And of course, also keep in mind, photography is not just taking photos. Photography is the whole field, everything around it. Like, I do education about photography with photo editing. It's part of photography. It's not directly taking photos, but it has to do with photography. You can sell equipment. You can create equipment, basically. You can give courses. You can make photo trips, stuff like that, right? So there's a lot of stuff around photography. Not everything has to do with photography, and not everything, I guess in a lot of senses, in a lot of times you end up at a very different point that you thought at the beginning. Like, I never thought in my life I'm gonna be a YouTuber and make videos about photo editing. Never ever, because I studied art. I thought I would do exhibitions and like installations and stuff like that, and and then you go another direction with your life, and that's okay. That's also good, right? You need to go where you feel happy and you feel fulfilled and you do things that you actually enjoy, right? So that's a pretty important part about that. By the way, tell me more about your businesses, your experiences, stuff like that, in photography or outside of photography. Both is good. Simon says it's important to know who you are selling to. Yes, that is also very important as part of the research. That's a really good point, actually. And a lot of people can't really define that. Even if they had businesses for years, even decades, they don't know who their customer is. And they have never defined that. And because of that, the business is kind of very like blurry, undefined, basically, right? Before I did this, I did marketing and websites for small businesses. And of course, the question always was like, who's your customer? Because we need to design the marketing and the website for this customer base, right? And most of the time, the answer was, well, everybody who buys our product. That is not a definition of a customer, right? If you make pizza and everybody who eats pizza is your customer, that is not great. You need to have a more specific definition of what that is, who you want to attract, what kind of problem does the business solve for that kind of customer. That's a very important part. So, for example, if you look at big businesses, you will see that they have a different approach than the other business, right? I mean, sometimes they are very similar, but actually most of them, they try a different thing. They try to attract different kind of crowds, different kind of interests. Even if you think about simple things like fast food, or I don't know, furniture, things like that. Think about IKEA, think about McDonald's. McDonald's is different from Burger King or Wendy's or these other stores in the way what they do, how they do it, why they do it, They don't necessarily attract the same customers with the things they do, right? Hi, Joe from California. How are you doing? Thanks for joining. And of course, what about Middle East? What do you mean, what about Middle East? I'm not sure. So in photography, you even have a wider range of what you can do, right? By the way, a classic mistake. I completely did that when I started out with my business for design. I offered everything you can think about, like, I don't know, business cards and flyers and websites and newsletters and marketing and social media posts and every kind of thing you can think about, like loyalty cards, kind of things where you get like 10 stamps on them and then you get a free coffee, stuff like that. Everything, because I thought, hey, if there is a customer, I want to like get that customer, right? That is not great. That's not a good idea. It's very scary to say I can do all of these things in a certain way, but I will only do one thing. For example, you say I will only do newsletters. I'm not doing websites. I'm not doing flyers. I'm not doing social media. I only do newsletters. That's good. Why is it good? Because at that point, you become an expert for this thing. You can even cut it down more. When you say, I do newsletters only for yoga studios, nobody else. Or let's say only for fitness, only fitness newsletters. So you understand that niche, that market, that customer and their customers very, very good. So you can serve them very, very well in that regard, right? So you can do the same thing with photography, basically. Maybe I should bring photography examples. And not like other like fast food stuff and stuff like that. Okay, so Jens says people who are working for 30 years in a business and don't know what their customers want, you just perfectly described my former company. Yes, a lot of companies have that problem. I would even say most companies have that problem. By the way, I'm not like I'm not over this. I do this mistake myself. If you look at my channel, you will see that I make videos about all kinds of stuff, right? The recent one was about how to make food photos look nicer, and then the before that was how to make sunsets and stuff like that. So it's still a wide range. I haven't specified. Maybe it would be better. It probably would be better if I said, okay, I'm only doing, let's say, portraits and only portrait tutorials and only fashion portraits or something like that, a very, very strict niche where you can become a really good expert, or something else, maybe something that hasn't been touched so much as like fashion photography, right? Yeah, so that is actually a pretty big part about that. On how to define that, right? How to find your market. And of course, everybody makes the same. Like, don't worry about making mistakes. The big thing, the most important thing is when you try to build a business, don't risk too much. That is the most important thing. You want to come out of it with either no pain at all, or maybe with a blue eye, but that's it. You don't want to be like completely destroying your life over an idea you thought might be a good idea. So try to do things that are low cost and try it out first and see, is there a market? Don't invest like huge amounts of money. Some businesses require it, of course. If you want to build a restaurant, or if you want to do a photo studio, let's keep with photography. If you want to build a photo studio, you probably need a lot of money. Let's say upwards of $100,000, probably. If you need the equipment, you need the room, you need all the kind of things around that. It's pretty expensive, but instead of that, you could say, I find customers first. I rent a studio that will probably eat a lot of the money I could earn with that, but I don't have that risk, and the customer is paying for the rent. So I'm not losing anything other than what I earn. But at the beginning, the earning is not the most important part. The building the business is the most important part, right? So some businesses, they go without income for the first years. So that's not like, it shouldn't be the main focus. You can still have your same job you have right now and say, okay, I try this maybe twice a month, or maybe every weekend I go out there and do photo shootings. And then if I get customers at a certain point, when my income overtakes the job I have right now, or I can have enough so I can live from that, I quit my job and I just do this full time, right? I mean that now Middle East is an open market for any product. Really? I didn't know that. Okay, interesting. Uh-huh. Um, I don't know about that. But that sounds great. That sounds really good. Which is by the way, also an important factor is where are your customers? Who are they? Right? You don't have to sell to the customers who are around you. Maybe you offer a service that is sought after on the other side of the planet, right? Like, for example, my customers, they are mostly in the US, in Canada, because, of course, my channel is in English. I don't really have too much interest on local business because I want to be more widespread and more international, because my goal is to have as much as possible free education for everybody around the planet, no matter where they come from, no matter how much money they have, stuff like that. They can still watch it for free, learn for free, stuff like that. And then once in a while, I create a product for you, and then some people, if they want to have that, they can have that, or if they want to support me with my Patreon, they can. And because the like you reach a lot of people, it's okay if it's just a very small percentage of people who say yes, okay, I want to support you. It's of course always better if there's more, because then I can do more. But it's completely optional, and I'm really happy with that, to be honest. What what were we talking about? Let's get back to the topic. Let's have a look at my list. Okay, so we talked about the need. So the need is very important for that, and finding out if there's a need, who is the customer, define that a little bit more. And like I said, let me know in the comments. It's always good. Please use the chat, because then I can react to that. That's pretty good. You can also talk to me, like tell me about the things that you have tried in the past, or the things that you work on right now, or the ideas you have. Oh yeah, I just I thought about something that's also important. Keep it simple. That's very important. Keep it simple, because the simpler the thing is you want to do for the customer, the wider the interest can spread. The more specific it gets, the less it can spread. You can, if you have the feeling like, I want to have like a very small number of customers, but I sell something to them that is very specific, but at the same time the price is high, that's also an option. That's also possible. But you have more stability if you have something that is rather simple and you can sell it to a lot of things. So when you look at like the biggest, richest businesses on the planet, they sell the most basic things you can think of, right? They sell things like food, clothing, gas for your car, electricity, maybe internet communication, stuff like that, like very, very basic needs. It's not like elaborate or like very like, how can I say, specific to the need of the customer. They say, okay, we sell gas for your car, and that's it. Or toilet paper, something very simple, right? Of course, when you say, okay, but this is the kind of the opposite that you said before, like understand what your customers, what they need. Yeah, you need to be somewhere in the middle, right? You need to figure out, is there a market? Do I understand the customer? And then try to still like cover most of them in that niche. So this is how that works, right? You figure out the need, and then how can I cover most of that need, right? Hi, Design Schmied from Germany. How are you doing? Thanks for joining. Right. Okay. Let me go for the next one. Oh yeah. So this is another thing that is really interesting, and this is another thing that like most people get wrong. First of all, like we already talked about, people think you need to have a really great idea, and then they think you need to have really high quality, and that sounds right. Because of course, why would you ever want to sell low quality to a customer? That doesn't make any sense, right? But there is a difference between low quality and super high quality, because this is the mistake, to think we need to have the highest quality, and the highest quality always comes with the highest price. And this is not what people want. They want something they can afford and that's good enough, that fills their problem, right? So Like if you think about your everyday need, do you buy the most, like the best shoes ever? Like for thousands of dollars, you buy the best shoes that have been built in that kind of area? Or you're like, I want a like an average price shoe, or I'm still again going away from photography. Let's talk about a camera. Do you want to have the best camera on the market that costs like, I don't know, let's say $50,000? Or do you want to have a camera that's good enough for what you need? And it costs maybe, let's say 1,800, or it costs like just 500, or maybe it costs just 200, or maybe it's just the camera that's in your phone and you get it basically for free with your phone. Most people will not need or want the most expensive best camera on the planet. So the same thing goes for your service, right? The quality always needs to fit the idea and the requirement of the customer, right? So don't get afraid of, oh, I'm not the best in that area. You don't have to be the best in the area. You basically fill a need. And sometimes the need even doesn't need any kind of, well, how can I say, any kind of skill, if you know what I mean. A good example for this maybe would be the photo booth, right? That's a photo example. It has no skill at all. Taking a passport photo needs absolutely no skill at all, but it's something people need, right? So you go to a shop, you have your photo taken, or you go to a booth and have your photo taken. They make money with it. You get the picture. You can take the picture 1,000 times better. But this is what the government requires. They want to have this picture from a shop. And so you have to go there, right? So it's nothing about quality. It's everything about the need of a customer, right? Now our design says, oh, wait. I forgot. Design says how and where to sell and offer own photos. That's a good question. We should go into that. Okay, let me write that down. Where to sell own photos. Where to sell own photos. Okay, good. And then Navarro says, I have an idea. What about making workshops for our arts? By the way, it's first time I join your chat. Okay, that's awesome. What do you mean by our arts? The arts that you create or the arts that the customer creates? Because both is possible. You can make a workshop to show them how to create their art or how to do it in your style. Navarro says you will make a team and you will be the boss. Yeah, that's good, but you have to pay people. So you have to be able to generate that amount of money to be able to pay them, right? That's not easy. Let's go with the question of Design Schmied. Be more specific about own photos. Like, what do you mean by that? Is the own photos, is the artworks you create, like you photograph something you like, and then you want to sell that as an artwork? Or is it a service where the customer needs pictures of something, like, for example, a stock photo that you create first and then sell it? Probably one of those two has to be, right? Of course, there's a third option where you ask the customer what they need as a photo, and then you take that photo for them after you know what they need. I think you can also sell that as a service, right? Even online, if you're not at the same place, they say, hey, I need a nice photo of, I don't know, a baby eating candy or something, but it has to be this specific way. Can you do that for me? That could be something you can do online without needing to be there, right? You arrange everything for them and then you send them the picture. So that's also probably an option. So let me know which of those are you talking about. And of course, I can tell you right now, if you do your own artworks, you create something that nobody's looking for in the first place. So it's a very, very hard way to sell this. This is why most artists don't make money, because they create something and then hope someone will like it. And that's difficult, right? Of course, everybody gets lucky. Not everybody gets lucky, but you know what I mean. At some point, there's artists who get lucky with that and they create something and people happen to like it at the same time, right? And that's great. So that can work, but it's like playing the lottery in a certain sense, right? So you have much higher chances when you figure out what do people like and can I create that for them in my artistic style, right? And some people might say artistically, well, that's selling out, but is it? Because if you see it from the point of doing exactly what the customer wants, that might be selling out. But if you have a lot of creative variety and you say, well, people mostly buy this kind of thing from me, so I'm going to drop everything else and just going to do this part of my creativity, you do what you have done before, but you don't do the other stuff anymore. That's not selling out. You're just like focusing on the thing that works best. And this is basically what happens with most artists. Like if you look at them and they get famous with something, you will see that most artists after that will create that kind of thing and not anything else, because they know that sells and they know that the customer wants it. And of course also it would kind of dilute their worth if they would do something else at that point, right? So they're kind of stuck in a certain way with this kind of thing, because people have a very like specific attention to something, right? And they will not look at anything else just because they don't know you like that. They don't see you like that. That's a very important part of what kind of image do people have of you, right? And it's really hard to change that afterwards. I wanted to bring an example, but now I forgot about the example. Well, okay, but let me know what you meant with selling your own photos, and then we can go into detail. We can talk about that a little bit more. Let me look at my list, what I have already answered in my from my list here. So we have talked about the ideas and the quality. Oh yes. This is a very like big element of that. And this is also like a lot of people also get that wrong, which is surprising to me, but they really do, especially in creative areas, is the most important thing of a business is that the customer is always the most important part and the customer always comes first. This is the absolute major, most important rule ever in business. There is nothing more important than the customer. Nothing. Everything else is secondary, you know? And a lot of people, for some reason, get that wrong, right? Yeah. So always think about always think about the customer as your like best friend or something like that, or part of your family. You think about the customer as your not as your child in the way that they are childish, but in the sense of like how much you love your child or someone else, like your spouse or someone else, you know. See the customer like that, you know, because the customer makes your business. Everything you do, everything you have, that's paid for by the customer. If you have any kind of dreams, you want to fulfill them, you want to reach these goals, the customer makes this happen. Not you, the customer makes this happen. If there's no customer, there's no dreams. You can forget about everything because the customer pays for everything, right? So that's the most important part. Make them happy first. The rest comes later, right? And it's really like I'm like mind blown sometimes when I hear other creatives talk about their customers, like down talk about them, like they're so stupid, they don't know anything, you have to like educate them, stuff like that, blah blah blah. If that's your impression, maybe you're in the wrong business, I guess. I don't understand that. And of course, like they see it from the perspective of, I'm so educated. I studied design or whatever, and I know so much about that kind of thing, and the customer doesn't. So the customer is stupid. Why exactly is that? Like when you go to your dentist, do you know how to fix a tooth? You don't know how to fix a tooth. You ask the doctor to look in your mouth and tell you what is going on in your own mouth. But for some reason, your design customer or your photo customer needs to know how everything works. I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense, right? If the customer is wrong, that's your fault. It's not the customer's fault. It's your fault. You need to be better at making clear why and how things make things work for the customer. That's the most important part about that, right? They come to you with a problem. You need to figure out how to solve that. Also in the sense of the customer and the understanding of the customer. It's an important thing because a lot of people say, hey, I know the right way to do that. you know your right way to do that, is what you're saying at that point. You don't know the right way for the customer because the customer has a different need, right? And I really know that from design, because at the beginning I thought I will make the product as nice and good as possible so it looks amazing and the customer will be happy, because this is how you do this. This is good design, this is right design, this is how it has to look. And of course, the customers were not happy with this because they have other concepts about that, but they also have an understanding of who they sell to, who their customers are, or what their interests are. So if they want to have it a different way, you need to figure out with them why they want to have it a different way, and then find a solution that works for them, right? So sometimes, like for me, the classic example is if you have, like, for example, an electrician or something like that, you know, a plumber, let's say a plumber. You have a plumber and you make for him the best website ever that looks really nice and looks really like high quality and whatever. Would you, if you search for a plumber and you come to that website, would you call that plumber because it looks like very expensive at that moment because everything looks so nice? Or would you rather have the plumber with the crappy web page that like looks like he does a solid job, but he's not expensive at the same time, right? You probably would go to the ugly web page because it looks like what you need at that point. You don't need a deluxe plumber, you just need a good plumber that solves your problem, right? So that's an important part. It doesn't always have to be in the correct way. It has to work for the customer's need, right? So I'm again going away from photo examples. Let's go back to photo examples and use the chat. It's really important to use the chat. You can also write in the chat maybe if you want to make a business, what is your biggest fears? Because I know a lot of people are very afraid about doing their own business, especially if you're employed, because it seems very scary out there. And to do your own thing. So yeah, let me know about that. Or if you tried something, you can also let me know about that. What I think we have talked about most of the kind of basic stuff here, right? Is there anything else like I talked about this? Let me look through my list real quick. Oh yes. I'm not sure if I have already said that, but every business basically works the same. This is why you see when you have these big CEOs and they go from selling shoes to selling cars, and you're like, what do they know about cars? They don't need to know anything about cars. It's not their job to understand the car. It's their job to understand the business, because they then have teams or like experts that they do the car, they design the car, they make the marketing. What they do is just the business decisions, right? So it's basically the same thing in every kind of business, right? The process on how it works is very, very similar. So if you pick up some business books, they help you in any kind of way, no matter what you do. If you do art, or if you do a service, or if you sell a product, they will help you. You have to adapt a little bit what that means, what is in the books, but the process is exactly the same because it's always the same thing. The customer comes and has a need and has some money, and you have the solution for the problem. And so you get the money, they get the solution. Always the same. No matter what you do, it's always the same thing, right? If you go to the dentist or to the plumber or to the photographer or to the psychiatrist or whatever, if you go to university, you have a problem, you pay for the solution, they give you the solution, boom. That's it, no matter what it is, right? Always the same process. What's the next thing? Find the card. We have already talked about it. We have already talked about this. We have, yeah, I'm basically through my I'm through the list of basics, so that's pretty good. Okay, so now we can be maybe more specific about things. What can be a business? Like, there's a lot of different opportunities. Oh yeah, this is interesting. Like, because I also thought about maybe talking about NFTs a little bit, which is very strange. I don't really understand how they work. I don't own any NFTs, but the concept might be interesting. Although I find it a little bit spooky. But what comes before that, what's an interesting thing to talk about, is trends as a business. Because it's also a classic mistake is to see a trend and then think, yeah, I'm going to make a business about that. Now, the problem is, especially if you call your company with the name of that trend, the trend goes away and people get bored by that. And now you build a branding around something that nobody cares about anymore. So that's kind of a problem if you would do that, right? So if you like, well, what is a recent trend that went away? I can't think about anything. Any kind of, I don't know, any kind of TikTok trend or something, like any kind of dance or something like that, you know? Same thing was really popular. I can't think about it. Let's think about, like, for example, fidget spinners. I'm not sure if they still used, but if you have a company and it's the only thing it does is this, and the branding is this, fidget spinners, and then people get bored by that, your company's broken at that moment, because nobody, like, you could maybe come up with another product, but you have to at that point convince them that it is equally good and you're equally able to do that, even though in the past you had no connection to that kind of thing. So that makes it very, very hard to you basically build a new company at that point, right? Even if you have the customers, the customer base, they don't know that product, they don't want that product. So that makes it basically you have to cold sell basically a new thing to them. The good thing, although, for a trend is that you can try to, like, use the trend as long as it's hot. So that's a good thing, but it only lasts a short time. Like, if you are able to capitalize on a trend that maybe goes for half a year or a full year, and you can make as much business as possible from that one trend, and afterwards it's gone, that's still good. That's still great, right? That's a possibility. Yeah, so hi Sandra from Washington State, how are you doing? Arno says, I got 3. 3 what? What do you mean you got 3? Let me know. And don't worry about ideas. This is another thing, like, a lot of people are so afraid to share their ideas, artistically or business-wise or whatever, and I don't understand that, because it is so hard to build a business around an idea that even if someone thinks it's a good idea and they like it, they wouldn't try to make it happen, right? Unless they are maybe super experienced and serial entrepreneurs who can just, like, make a business happen like that. Some people are like that, but I'm pretty sure the most people that surround you, your friends or other strangers you talk to, are not that kind of people. So if you tell them even your best idea, there is a very, 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 very small chance that they will make it happen, but not you, right? And even then, you don't even know if you could make it happen, right? So maybe it's good for them to have it, right? What was I talking about? I lost my train of thought. I need to get better at asking questions for the chat. Oh, you got 3 fidget spinners. I never had one. I tried it once, I think, because a friend had one, but I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I do this for a little bit and it's like it goes, I don't know. Some people are really, like, happy to do this, but I was like, okay, yeah, okay, it's already boring. About why, what is happening there, right? But I don't have to understand everything, you know. That's okay. Okay, let's go and talk a little bit about these NFT things, just for a bit. So the strange thing is that it makes absolutely no sense the way it works right now, because you have these, like, tiny graphics and they cost millions, and they are not even that nice or anything. So personally, I think it's the same as maybe Pokemon cards or Beanie Babies or stuff like that. And I think the high prices, the high values, don't come from these things actually being worth that much, but just because during the pandemic, most of these crypto coins and tokens, they shoot up like crazy and they become very, very, very valuable. And so something that costs maybe $20 before now costs like $200,000 or something. You know what I mean? It just went up like crazy. I think this is where the prices come from. I think no sane person would literally spend that much money on something. They probably had the tokens, the coins or tokens before. I'm not sure, but The interesting thing on the other hand is that it has a lot of potential. So right now we are in this kind of, how can I say, baby stage of these kind of things, of what you can do with them. Like, I think a good example for that is the classic ringtones. Can you remember back in the day when we had the phones with the buttons on them to type texts, and you had these kind of print ads with numbers in them? You can like send an SMS to that number, and then you pay like €5 or something, $5 for a ringtone. And that was super popular. I know that all of my friends, they like wanted to have the coolest, newest music as a ringtone for their phone, to like, because bragging rights, which is important. Bragging rights, looking cool, showing off, very big things in that kind of regard. And now they are dead. They went away. They are worth nothing at all, because first of all, everybody can make their own ringtone, and then yeah, it became uninteresting at that point because everybody can do it, right? So the bragging right is gone. You can't brag with something that everybody can do just like that, right? So yeah, I think NFTs are a bit like that until they evolve into something. But, and here comes the very important but about that, why does it matter to you if it's awesome or not, if it's useful or not, if it goes away or not? If people buy it, if you can make it happen that people buy it from you, you can still make money with that, right? So don't worry about if it's good or bad, or like has value in 10 years or not. If you can sell it and people buy it, that's already it. Boom. Just jump on the trend, try to make it happen if you can, if you know how to, and yeah, why not, you know? Don't worry about like if it's good in the long run. Because it's good now. People want it now. They have the need now, and they want to spend the money now. This is the only thing that works. This is the only thing that matters. Because after all, at the end of the day, you also have to take into consideration that every customer is an adult and they have their own money. And they can do with the money whatever they want. If you think it's a great investment, doesn't matter. If they want to buy it, that does matter, right? So if you think, I'm not sure if this is a great idea, it's still okay. It's still good, you know? I'm also thinking about maybe I should do some of my works as NFTs, because, you know, I don't have a crystal ball. Maybe I sell an NFT, maybe I make a picture and it sells like for 500, and then in 10 years it's worth 5 million. I don't know, it could be. If people want to take that risk, it's not my responsibility. If they say, hey, I want to have that absolutely as an NFT, okay, why not? If you're willing to pay for that, why not? That's good for me. Sandra says, didn't one NFT sell for millions a while back, then recently only for a few hundred? Really? I don't know about that. I didn't hear about that. There's one from a very, very good artist, and he sold an NFT for, I think, 90 million or something like that. And I can kind of understand how that might be valuable because it's from that really good artist. But, and also the currency has dropped a lot since, but not that much. I don't think that much. Chris says, nowadays you need to prove your skills abundantly on social media communication because became so important. Yes, that is true. Social media became very, very important. Arno says, I would like to have a Cantina band song. The Cantina band song. Okay, interesting. Right? The interesting thing about an NFT is, I mean, it depends on the contract or what the buying contract says. But basically, when you buy an NFT, you own nothing. That is the amazing part about that. You own nothing. It's like when you buy an MP3 on an online store. You don't own anything at that point. The only thing you buy when you buy a music on an online store on iTunes is the right to listen to that music in your private time. You and maybe your friends and maybe your family. But that's it. You don't own the song. You don't own any rights. You cannot use it commercially. You cannot just put it in your videos or in your advertisement or play it in a club or anything like that. You don't own anything about that song. And NFTs are basically the same thing. unless the contract specifically states otherwise. That's an important part. It can state otherwise. Like, for example, if you buy a stock image, that's basically the same thing. You don't own the image. You own nothing about that image, but you can use it once. Depends on the license you have. Like most stock pages, you can use it once for one purpose or one customer. Or there's others, like, for example, Artlist with the music, where you can use it forever if you want to. They have a different kind of licensing model. So it's really like it comes down to what it is or what you get with that, right? So, and I think these kind of things can evolve into a lot of things. Yeah, but that's more like I mean, you can also innovate. If you want to, you can add to an NFT whatever you want. By the way, this is not an NFT stream. I just thought it's kind of a cool thing to talk about as one of the things you can do. Maybe let's talk about things that are more applicable to what most people do right now, right? With photography. So what could that be? Like I said, education is a big part, photography is a big part, and everything around that, right? Also photo trips. Like, for example, one of my ideas would be to have a travel organization, basically. Not that I'm doing that, but just as an idea, I think that would be a good idea. So the purpose is for that agency that you, as a person who wants to have nicer Instagram photos, you go to a place, and instead of like doing the classic tourist thing, they bring you to places, they bring the equipment, like light equipment or whatever, whoops, and they go to exactly that spot, that angle, everything, and you can take that nice Instagram photo. And then also they give you some LUTs, and they give you some videos that show you how to edit these photos so they look really nice, and you can post it on your Instagram. And that is for people who are not like big Instagrammers, but they still want to have that nice, cool Instagram photo, right? I think that's a service that a lot of people would be into, right? Maybe not. I don't know. I haven't researched. This is the kind of thing where this is more of an idea than I actually know there's a need. I think that to a certain degree, there is this kind of need, because you see that a lot of people try to do that, right? Everybody wants to be that Instagram person, or that TikTok person or whatever, So if you have people who can guide you to that, I think that's a kind of a neat thing to have. That would be one thing. And that's kind of a service. You do photography at the same time. So that's in kind of that area, right? But let's, for example, think about stock photography. Like, of course, I think stock pages are problematic because you have a lot of competition, and there is not really any way to stand out to your customer on the page itself. So that makes it really hard to sell anything on that page. But on the other hand, again, you can research. Like for example, when you look at the photos on stock pages, you can figure out what is really hard to find, and then maybe also try to figure out what are a lot of people looking for, but they can't find it, right? And you can also ask people online, right? Like, for example, go to different Facebook groups in that niche that you want to cover, and say, okay, I do a research. It is always good to say, I do a research. I write a paper for my university. It's always nice because people want to help you. And you can ask them, what are pictures you can't find on stock pages? Or what does annoy you the most about stock pages, right? What's the most complicated thing about stock pages? Like for me, for example, one of the biggest downsides of stock pages that really annoys me is the licensing models that are too complicated and too annoying, and especially in the long run, So think about, you buy a picture and you want to use that. How often can I use it? Where can I use it? Because some are for example, I have music from Epidemic Sound, which I kind of regret having a contract with them, to be honest, because I was with Artlist before, and Artlist tells you, you can use your music wherever you want. It's more expensive, but you can use it wherever you want, how often you want, how long you want, even after you cancel the subscription. With Epidemic, it's not that way. So I have to link my account so they know this is where I posted, but I can only link either my Facebook profile or my Facebook page, which is absolutely nonsense in my mind, because I can create a post with music for my page, but then I can't share it with my friends on my private profile. What? What is that? Who thought about that and thought this is a good idea? So I would say, I would think that making it very simple for customers to work and use these licenses is something that would attract more customers and make it much, much simpler for them, right? Like how often can you use it? Where can you use it? Stuff like that. Where you say, okay, if you buy the license, let's say you buy the license, you can use the photo as often as you want, as long as you want, wherever you want, no problem. You just have to buy the license for that picture, and that's it. You can't resell it, but use it as often and wherever you want. And, the thing about that is people are not going to use it a million times and in a million different ways. They just, it gives them a lot of safety, but they are not using that safety at the same time. They just want to feel safe and have it as easy as possible. I don't want to go back after years or something like, let's say 3 months later, I think, hey, that photo would be cool for the new campaign. I can't remember where I bought that or what the license is or if I can use it that way. That's like a huge pain. And then you have to go to that page and you have to pay again for that. And you have to figure out everything again. It's really annoying, rather than buying it once, putting it in a library, and then like just using it for your other like things, So this kind of simplification, right? And that, of course, this is not something you can do on a stock page. You have to like do it with your own customers, which personally I find more interesting to do it that way, because then you stand out because you're the only one in that market to your customers, rather than being one in a billion people on a stock page. You know what I mean? Personally, if I would like to sell stock pages, if that would be something I would want to do as a business, I would first try to figure out what is, like I said, what is something that is hard to find and people want to have that. For example, let's think about business photography, right? When you go to stock pages and type in business photography, businessman, businesswoman, business office, like signing a contract, almost all of them look absolutely unnatural and staged and really bad and really like cliche and just awful. The lighting is bad. Everything feels bad about them. You don't want to associate your business with these kind of photos, but this is what you mostly get. It's really hard to find any kind of other photos, right? So it would seem nice or useful to like write to these kind of businesses who need something like that and ask them, okay, what kind of photos do you need? Maybe niche down to a certain area of, I don't know what that could be. Let's pick any kind of thing. Let's say you want to specialize in, what could it be? Who needs business photos? Well, I'm not good with businesses. What would be that kind of thing? I can't come up with an example right now. What would be something like that? Let's say, what is it called? What is the English word for that? Hausverwaltung. Hausverwaltung English, because there's a lot of them. Property manager, right? So you reach out to property management companies and say, hey, you want to have nice business photos, nice photos with customers, stuff like that they can use on your website. How would they need to look? What kind of, to make them more natural, what kind of situations do you like? What kind of people should be in that photo, right? And then you can make photos like that and you can send them out to them and say, hey, is this kind of the thing you're looking for? I have a license. It's completely unlimited. You only need to buy like you pay once per photo, but then you can use it as long as you want, no problem with that, right? But we also, of course, we do seasonal things and stuff like that, so you keep them up to date. This is the next thing, is like figure out what they need and how they need it, like what is the specific problem, and then upselling. This is the major thing, like what could you sell after that? So you sell the initial service, but then you add something to that. So you say, okay, we have something about like let's say the classic customer who is standing in his house and he's happy about your property management service. Okay, but then let's say about safety, and then we have people with disabilities, and then we have children, and then we have holidays, and then we have, I don't know, we have night photos, we have day photos, we have different seasons, right? So there's different problems in the winter, there's different situations in the spring. Someone has to cut the grass, someone has to do this and that, there's painting the walls, stuff like that. There's a million different things that you can use photos for, as you can figure out, okay, what kind of photos. And then you send emails to them. So you say, okay, sign up to my newsletter. It gets a little bit cheaper, stuff like that. If you buy a bundle of photos, of course, it also gets cheaper. And again, you can use the photos as long as you want. Maybe put something in the photos that is time relevant. So it looks like, this is a classic trick that, for example, Apple uses. You can see from the phone it's an old phone. So people want to have the new phone, not because the old phone is bad, but because it doesn't look like the new phone. And so this is kind of a bragging right. So this is something you could build into that. Like if you have something in the photo that is, like, for example, you couldn't have an iPhone because that's a brand. You couldn't show a brand, but something else, you know, where you say, okay, this photo looks dated. You need a new photo. You need something that's like goes with the time. So let's try to do that, right? So these kind of things, right? It's always built around what does the customer need? How can I provide these services? How can I add to these services, right? So that's a big part of that. Arno says, I think many agencies got their own photographer to get better photos, or e.g., I'm not sure what e.g. means, to take the photo for their workstation. From their workstation? From their workstation? How do you take a photo from the workstation? I'm not quite sure how you mean that. That is true, but it's only true in the sense where they want to show specific things, like specific buildings or things that are like that need to, where you need to be at the location. Like, because it's a lot more expensive to have a photographer take the photos on location specifically for you. It costs hundreds, if not even thousands, you know. So if they want to photograph at a location, you need, of course, models on the because they need to look nice in front of your camera, and then you need the light setup, and you need makeup for the models, and you need to edit the photo, stuff like that. It's getting really, really expensive. And of course, you have to plan everything of that with the customer. All of that also is time that they have to pay. So that gets very expensive very fast. And if you can say, hey, instead of spending 3,000, you can spend 300 and you get the same quality from me, and you can use the photos as often as you want, because your photographer, he wants to have extra money for any kind of extra use and any kind of extra copies. But for me, I don't need that. I don't want that. You get my photos, they are awesome, and you use them as often and wherever you want. Print, online, video, in your newsletters, I don't care, just use them, right? If you're happy, I'm happy, right? Good. So why wouldn't they do that, right? So of course you have to like have something that they actually want to have. If they say, no, we still want to have our own photographer, then of course it's completely normal if you have a business that a lot of people will say no to you. And you have to like, you have to be okay with that, right? It's not about you, it's not about the quality of your product, it's just that they don't need that at the time, right? If someone would say right now to me, hey Olivio, do you want a beer? I would be like, I like beer, but not right now. I'm streaming. I don't want to be drunk on my stream. So usually yes, but right now no. So it's a no sell. So you know what I mean? It's not about the beer, it's about not right now, you know? So I think that can work. And over time, you can also like build up everything around that, right? You make a bigger newsletter. You, of course, as you know, my big thing is education. So I would offer them a lot of additional education around that. How to use these photos the best, right? Or how to do the marketing, or advice on like how to do better newsletters, how to make a nicer landing page, how to make a better website. Why does this have anything to do with photography? To educate, to make an online course for your customers that is maybe even free, on how to make better and more newsletters, because your photos are in the newsletter. So if they write more newsletters and they make more business with these newsletters, you are selling more pictures and you are the person they buy from, because they have learned everything from you. So of course they trust you and they like want to give back to you, right? So that's a good connection. You need to think a little bit also around the environment, the landscape where your product lives, right? So if you enable them to do better, they can like come back to you and spend more on you, right? If you build up their business, they can help you build up your business, right? So that makes a lot of sense to do these kind of things. And this, I think most photographers don't do that. Most photographers wouldn't like offer anything like that. Of course, they also don't have time, because they have to go out there and take the photos single time people need a photo. While you take a photo and then you send it, you sell it 1,000 times. So you don't have to go out there. You can use that time to make all these kind of awesome videos and blog posts and newsletters and stuff like that. So that makes a lot of sense, right? Yeah. And you can even maybe over time employ other photographers to do other things, right? So yeah, I think that would be kind of the route that I would take, not going on stock pages, but rather make my own kind of stock photo service for a niche directly to the customer with these kind of extra services around that, right? Okay. What else can we talk about? But how long is the stream already? 1 hour? Wow, okay. I'm a talking machine. When the stream goes on, I talk without point or comma. Is this something you say in English? It's a German saying. All right. Oh, there's so much more to talk about. But let me know anything in the chat. I think today I'm again in the kind of talk rather than listen mode. Hi Yayo, how you doing? Thanks for joining. Sorry, I didn't see your message. So what else is there? We can also talk like should we talk about other examples maybe also? Like what would be examples or kind of niches or kind of like ways to do photography that would be interesting to you? Oh yeah, for example, I can tell you that a lot of people think, oh, I'm gonna be a travel vlogger. I'm gonna be a travel photographer. That is a huge mistake, because you have to keep in mind that this is a full-time job still. So when you travel to do videos or to do photos, you don't really travel at that point. You go there as a business trip. So you come there and then you have to do the photos and the editing and all this kind of, you spend a lot of time doing that and very little time actually enjoying the place, because you don't have time for that. So you go to a nice temple or a nice location and you have to like figure out, where do I have to stand? How does the model look? Like all these kind of ideas. You have to come up with a lot of good ideas and do these things. So it's not like you travel most of the time and then you do a little bit of work as it looks in these videos or in these photos. It's quite the opposite, right? You do a lot of work and then you travel a little, and the traveling is basically driving to the next spot that you want to photograph or video, right? So it's not so great, and it's also very, very hard. There's a lot of competition out there. You need to have a very good idea to is messages getting retracted again from the chat? I just saw you wrote testing chat. Is it not working? I might have a problem with the chat bot. I hope it's working. So yeah, that's difficult. But again, if you want to do that, you can do that. You can become successful with that, but you have to figure out something that is needed, but nobody's doing it yet. Or by the way, this is wrong. not nobody's doing it, but very few people are doing it. Why? This is also very good advice. Why is it bad if nobody is doing it? If nobody's doing it, it usually means it doesn't work. It's very rare that you come up with an idea nobody has ever thought about. So that's probably not the reason why. It's more likely you had an idea that is too complicated or there's no need for it at this moment. There might be a lot of need for it in some years. But the good thing is, if there is some people who do it already, you can look into what they have done, all the mistakes they have done, and you can avoid these mistakes. This is also why it's not great to be first to the market. It's much better to be the best to the market, or one of the good ones in the market, right? The thing is, like, for example, you have another company, they have already done it for, like, say 2 or 3 or 4 years. You look at them, you can see how they do it and all the mistakes that they have done. If they have an online record, you can look at what they have done differently in the past, so you see the mistakes that they've done and how to avoid that. And then you start with all of that kind of avoidance of errors, of mistakes, and on top of that, you can build with things that their community, their customer base wants, but they can't deliver on that. And there's a simple reason for that, because at a certain point, first of all, you reach your limit in what you can do, and secondly, you have built yourself a process, a certain scheme that works for you, and you have grown into that scheme. And it's really hard to break free from that again, to do things differently or to see other things, because you know that works. So you don't want to take any risks anymore, to try out new things that might not work. And also you have learned to do these things so like, well, this kind of repetition, that you would have to relearn everything. So for someone coming from the outside, this is why it's for new companies much easier to innovate and to do new and better things, while the old companies are stuck in their ways, because it's very, very hard to break free from this way. So this is also something to try to avoid, is to get stuck in that kind of area, right? And also to realize when you're stuck, when things are not happening anymore or not growing anymore, right? And of course, at a certain point, most companies will get stuck in that place because it's hard to avoid, and also people will lose interest over time, because things are not that hot and not that cool anymore. So you will have probably at the beginning like this kind of curve where it's going upwards and you're getting more and more successful, and then at a certain point you just reach max level, because at that point you don't innovate anymore, and people already know you know, and you didn't, this is also one of the mistakes, and this is something I can't really tell you how to overcome that, because I haven't managed that myself yet, is how to go from being, how can I phrase this, how to move on from offering a product or a service to becoming a larger business, right? Because a business is kind of that's the area where you talk about market share and things like that, where it's large, and it's the business itself is the process. The business is making the money. It's no longer about the product, it's about the business, right? Because you always start out, or usually you start out, especially if you don't have this kind of big business experience, with the service or with the product, right? And you try to sell that to the customer. This is kind of the small world thing. This is where basically 95% of humanity is stuck in that kind of area where you do this kind of thing, right? You have a service or you have a product that you do either for a business where you're employed, or you do it for your own customers when you have your own business. This is kind of the starting point. And at a certain point, you need to be able to overcome that. And like, yeah, but that's difficult. And I actually don't know how to do that. So I can't tell you. Okay. Anyways. Like, for example, in my case, that would be, rather than, like, right now, my main business is doing these tutorials and then doing these creative packs for you. to grow bigger would be to figure out how to, for example, grow that either into a learning platform with multiple educators, like other people that work for me. I have a photographer and the light guy and the makeup guy and whatever, and they do tutorials about that, all the kinds of things that I'm not expert in, and they can then make these courses, and they have different channels, so you build up a multi-channel platform, right? That sounds really wrong. What is that word? That is like pyramid scheme, multi-channel something. This is not what I mean. I mean multiple YouTube channels, or you have like a platform where you have all these kind of products or things, that other people create, because of course the day only has 24 hours, but there could be so much more done. And you have like designers or things who do all these kind of things, and suddenly it's a huge platform. Or you even make a platform where others can sell these products. That would be like moving from a product to a business, right? Product is like this, or like this, and business is like this. So that's like the huge thing, where they say, oh, I want, like you see on Shark Tank, right? When they say, I want to have 500,000 for 10% of my business, right? That's the kind of thing. Anyways, what else can we talk about here? We covered a lot. Is there something else I should cover, or you want to know, or you want to tell me about, or tell everyone about, basically? Let me know in the chat. It would really be nice. I would say let's go another like 20 minutes or something, and then we do the weekly challenge, or we can go even longer if you want to, if this is interesting to you or not. Yeah, well, what else? Yeah, I think I talked about some of the major mistakes. I want to hear something from you, please. To write something in the chat. Let me know something. Is it basically, is it something you're thinking about, or what would be the kind of business? Like, I think a lot of people, when they think about photography, is they think about wedding, something like that. What is the classic things like wedding and then babies or stuff like that? I don't know. Weddings and parties. Two things I would never do myself, but a lot of people seem to like to do that, right? Sandra says, how to keep people from stealing your ideas, as I have had that happen to me. Does it matter when they steal the ideas? Why? Let me know why this matters. Like, did you at that point lose something? Did they steal your ideas, or did they steal your customers? Because if they steal your ideas but your business stays the same, it didn't hurt the business. What's the downside with that, right? If they steal your business or your customers, that is a problem, of course. That's hard to avoid, right? Other than like having a better service or doing like things that customers enjoy so they stay. Yeah. I mean, this is like, okay, this is maybe another point to talk about, is staying relevant is really also hard. Especially like, it's more hard when you're in social media. It's less hard when you're a local business, because the benefit of a local business is that you're local and people are convenient. They don't want to drive to the next town. They want to have someone who's near their home and want to walk like 3 minutes. So this is the selling point at that moment. So staying relevant is staying close to them. Online it's different because everyone else is just a click away. So staying relevant basically means just keeping your customers around, keeping people interested. I hate weddings and events. Yeah, me too. If I'm on a party, I want to like party. I don't want to work there, right? Yes, they made money from my idea. But did you lose money? If they make money with your idea, why is that a bad thing, right? I understand like it hurts a little bit. It's like it hurts your pride that they took your idea and then they made money with that. But if you didn't lose any money from that, what's the problem with that, right? I mean, of course, it's kind of you probably don't want to be friends with them anymore if they told you something and then they did it. Although I can understand at a certain degree that you talk about things and then afterwards they come up with something that is very similar and they think it was their idea, which happens more often than you would think, that people actually think, oh, no, it was my idea, that I came up with that, right? So that's really interesting that, or something similar, right? Sandra says, by the time I got my book to the publisher, they indicated they already had one on the subject. What? Okay, that's pretty hard. Okay, that's a different thing. But this is like when you have a product that you can only sell to a very limited amount of people, like a publisher. That is hard. That is really hard, because if you sell to a lot of people, it's not a problem because there's always more people, but there's not always more publishers. So that is really, and they took your idea and made that book. Basically, they invested all of that time and then went to the publisher. Wow. Okay, interesting. That is pretty hard. That is, yeah, but in that case, they actually took your business. This is what I talk about, right? If they take your business, that is not great. That is really like evil. If they take the idea and say, hey, yeah, that sounds great, I want to do something similar, I do it somewhere else, but no problem. I say, yeah, go ahead with that. No problem with that. But if you go to my customers and take my business with my ideas, that's betrayal at that moment, right? That is really hard, right? I wouldn't care if they use my ideas, but I would care if they like take my life away, right? That's not great. Written by a so-called friend. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's the end of the friendship, I would guess. That is really bad. But I mean, yeah, usually it happens rather rarely. That's the good thing is it doesn't happen too often, because even if you have a great idea, the people would still need the time and the skill and the effort to make that happen. Apparently they had that, so the publisher was happy about that. But like, just to talk about that, didn't you tell the publisher before about that book and kind of had like a, I don't know, what is it called? They sign something like a contract with you where they say, if it's really like that, we're going to buy that. Is it called like a letter of intent or something? I'm not quite sure. So they basically sign with you to say, yeah, we're going to buy that book from you if the book is what you say it is, And in that case, they couldn't give it to someone else, right? You know what I mean? So that would be good. If the publisher knows about it, it's less likely they would give it to someone else. NDA? No, an NDA is something different. Because an NDA is, you would have to sign the NDA with your friends. You can do that, of course. But then you have to go to court. So it's also not that easy to do that, to have an NDA. And you also have to prove that their idea is the same and that your idea is actually protected in the way they did it. It's exactly the same. So if it's a photo book and they took photos of the same place, I'm probably sure the judge is going to say everybody can take a photo of that place. It's not like you don't own that place, right? It's like if you say I make a photo about bears in Alaska, everybody can photograph bears in Alaska. It's not like you don't own that, right? So that's pretty hard to protect that. But if you go to a publisher and say, hey, this is my idea, blah, 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 would you be interested? And say, yeah, we want to buy that book from you if it's as good as you say. It would be a very like scammy publisher, I think, if they would buy the same idea from someone else. Yeah. It is an idea, but not a formal contract at that time. And they still, like, they knew about it and still bought it from someone else. That's not a nice publisher, to be honest. That's not great. Yeah, that's a hard business. Okay. But I mean, couldn't you sell the same, like your idea that you have created, to another publisher? You maybe could go to another publisher. If this book is already out, you can say, hey, look at that, the book sold pretty well. It actually was my idea, but they like went behind my back, but it sold very well. So maybe you want to do this for your publishing house. So could work, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know too much about publishing, so I can't tell you anything about that. But that might be possible. And still, another thing that I would think about is maybe, I mean, if it's a photo book and not a novel or something, like not a textbook, you could probably use the photos in another way, like for calendars and for stock pages and for, I don't know, advertisements, stuff like that. Sell them in a different way, right? Try to sell them to magazines, stuff like that. So you still get money back, even though the book didn't happen. You can self-publish, that's also true, but the problem is you don't have that kind of impact. You don't have the connection to all these other kind of stores and things, and you don't have this big newsletter list or marketing budget to make this book popular enough, right? So self-publishing is today absolutely possible, especially with ebooks, but it's, again, you need to find the customer first. So how do you find the customer at that point? If you just put it on Amazon, it doesn't mean it will sell at all, right? So it's actually better to build a community first and then to try to sell them later, right? Of course, also when you have the community first, you know that they have a certain interest, right? Sandra says, yes, rewritten and editing and going to be different one so that it's a follow-up I'm doing. Okay, that sounds great. Yeah, so you can still use that in a certain way. Yeah. I mean, this is also like, being an artist is pretty painful in that sense, because you're always fighting against the system, and then you also fight for interest from in your regard the publishers, in my regard the galleries, stuff like that. So they want to have you, and then people still need to buy that, so they need to find customers. It's a very hard kind of thing to do. So at a certain point in time, I went the other way and said, hey, I'm going to ask the customer first what they want and then do it, right? So no money, no work. You know what I mean? Of course, you could say with YouTube now it's the other way around. But that's not really true, because now I'm happy to do it for free. Because it's kind of the marketing that enables me to sell things afterwards, right? So in that sense, it's not actually free, the work that I do, even though the product is free. You know, it's a different kind of process. Hector says, in my experience, I'm kind of oldish. I've learned to align my knowledge to customers' needs. So if they want a purple frog with white stripes, I tried to do so instead of imposing my work's idea. That's also good, right? If they want to have something and they're willing to pay for that, and you don't feel like you betray yourself at that point, yeah, do it. Absolutely, why not? You know? Sandra says, the writer is no longer in our group and blocked from participating as no one trusted her anymore. Ah, I see. Okay, so it was a writing group and you shared your ideas to get feedback, and then they stole that idea. Yeah, that's not great. That is not a cool thing to do, right? Unless it was like allowed by the group, which could also be possible. But yeah, interesting. It's really interesting that that happens, right? And that they invested time to then write a book that even gets good enough to get picked up by a publisher. That's pretty intense. Like, if you have that skill, why don't you write about your own ideas at that point, right? That's really strange that they had to steal another one's ideas. Crazy. And I mean, it's not like, how can I say? It's not like there aren't ideas out there that you can take anyways, because there's millions of ideas out there in the open that you can just like say, okay, I'm going to do that, especially if you think about traditional stories, because none of that stuff is copyrighted anymore. You might think so because Disney has used a lot of them, if you think about Hercules and stuff like that. But Hercules, Disney, for example, doesn't own Hercules. That's kind of a classic Roman like figure from thousands of years ago. If you want to write about Hercules, I'm pretty sure you can, right? Or any kind of these other stories. You want to write about, I don't know, whatever. You know what I mean? all these kind of classic stories. If you want to write a book about the life of Nefertiti or something, or what is the name? Caesar or whatever, these kind of things, the gladiators or whatever, you can, right? You can do that. It's not protected. The old writings, the old theater plays, all of that is like open, right? Also with art and with photography and everything. If it's old enough, it's public domain. So you can like facilitate that for your own works if you want to, right? You don't need to steal something that is happening right now from artists. What were we talking about before that? We were talking about something else. I wanted to make a point, but I forgot. I can't remember. The agencies. Yeah. So basically my concept is, of course, for me it's at this point what I do is mostly a business to customer. So there's basically two concepts in building a business. You can sell to customers or you can sell to other businesses, which works differently. So for me it's business to customer. For you it's business to business. And that's a different process, because then you have less customers, because it's just like a handful of businesses you sell to in your sense, the publisher. In my sense, with customers, it's a lot of customers, and so the process is a little bit different in that sense, right? And this is why for me, my concept is to have a, this is what I wanted to talk about before. I remember with the community, to build a community. And then to have basically see everything as a landscape. I find that is a good way to understand things and to build up your business if you understand it as a landscape and see what kind of things can I add to the landscape, what kind of things can I do inside of the landscape. And one of the important things about that also is, if you build that up, don't try to build things that are work intense for you or for anybody in your company, because that will drag on over time. If you do something and you say, well, it only takes an hour a week is all I have to invest to make this happen. Okay, so you add this. An hour a week, that is 52 hours per year. That's a lot of work, right? That is a full week of, more than a full week of work that you added on your schedule, just like that, just like boom. 1 week is gone that you have to invest extra in time. So if you have 2 or 3 things that only take an hour, usually take longer, you have added several weeks of workload to your schedule or to your company. And of course, you have to pay for all of that if you have employees, or you have to invest all of the time if you do it yourself. So rather try to do things that can be used a lot of times and are useful for a lot of your customer base, right? So for a classic thing for that would be, for example, like I said before, with these videos, like you sell the photos to your customer and then you give them maybe a video or a PDF or an audio file or something that you pre-record to say, okay, this is how you can use it in a better way. Like, for example, you make a video and you say, this is how you can use my photos on Canva to cut it into the different social media sizes, for Instagram, for Facebook, for your newsletter, for whatever kind of page you want, for your website, stuff like that. This is how you do that. And maybe you have prepared for them already a couple of files. I'm not sure if Canva can do that, but let's say you have created a couple of like already pre-created formats that will work for that, and you can send a link to that so they can just like add that to their Canva account. Maybe that would be an additional upselling thing. You can maybe see if Canva has either affiliate program where if your customers sign up, you get a share of that, or maybe you can make a business account where your customers pay you for being on your business account, right? For example, I know that from websites that some, like, I didn't do that, but a friend of mine did that. She had her own server and would host the websites of the customer on that site. And she would say, hey, I do the hosting, I do the security for you, I do the updates for the website, everything for the plugins. You pay me a monthly fee of this and that. Let's say $100 for that. For that service, you don't have to care about everything. I make all of these kind of things. And then if there's any kind of bigger things to do, I let you know. It's going to be costing extra, of course, but I can do that for you, right? So you can try to figure out how you can do that for your photography, right? Without adding too much work. So for example, she had scripts on her server that would automatically update all of the websites, right, for the newest WordPress version, stuff like that. So yeah, things like that could be useful, right? So I don't know, these kind of things, yeah, that don't add too much work, but it's a lot of service, and it adds like a certain amount of fee that is not too big, but also not too small. And of course, that's a lot of income, right, for you. If you have 10 customers and all of the, like, only 10 customers pay you $100 per month to use that service, that's $1,000 more, right? To run a script once in a while. So that's great. These small things, that really add up a lot, right? So that's pretty good. Yeah, and so to figure that out in photography might be like bringing in a lot of extra cash without having to do a lot of extra work. All right. Let me think about, I wanted to say something else. Oh yes, I remember. This is about the community. So a very, very important part that a lot of people also miss on is doing things doesn't mean that anybody sees that you did them, so you don't generate any business from them. So for example, if you upload a video on YouTube, nobody's going to find it. Nobody's going to see it. You get 0 views from that because you don't have any community, so YouTube is not going to promote your video. You have to promote your video yourself. I share every video I do, I share to different groups and different sites, so people can click on the video and come back to my channel. Of course, now YouTube promotes my videos too a little bit, but still most of the traffic comes from me sharing the videos to the communities where these videos are needed. So you need to do the same thing. You need to go where the customer is. Don't wait for the customer to come to you. Always go to the customer where they are. First of all, it's convenient, but secondly, they know you exist. That is a really important thing. If nobody knows you exist, they can't buy from you. They can't use your services, right? And today, this is what, I don't know who that was in the beginning, said social media is important. Today, an important element of the business is that you want to give a huge benefit to the customer before they buy. So the selling of the product begins way, way, way before you actually sell the thing, right? Before you get the money. So you want to build up the trust and help them and give them some benefits so they can get better with their things. And then at a certain point, they will buy from you eventually, maybe not, right? So it's not uncommon that people will look at that product 10 times, 20 times, 30 times before they make a decision to actually buy that product. And you have to take that into account. And this is also very important. Like I said before, when people say no, they might say no, not no actively, you don't call them and they say no 30 times, but they go to the website and they look and they're like, it looks cool, but I'm not quite sure. And they come back a month later and like, it's nice, but maybe they have a sale. Maybe I wait a little bit longer. And then they come back a week later and they're like, yeah, but I don't know. And at a certain point, they're like, okay, let's just buy it, right? So that's very common. That people take a lot of time to make these decisions, but you want to be there for them from the very start over all of the time, even if they never become their customer. And this is also an important part. Just because they're not your customer, let me phrase that differently. Just because they don't make you any money, just because they don't pay for anything doesn't mean they're not your customer, right? Because they are still part of that landscape, they are still part of that community, they are as important as the people who pay you for something. Why is that so important? Because think about a plant. I think that's a good analogy. If you want to like plant something, right? You want to plant some food for yourself. Let's say you want to plant an apple tree. You need to have some ground where you can plant that in, right? It's only going to be one tree, but you need a lot of earth around that, and you need water, and you need sun and everything. So all of that is necessary. All that landscape is necessary so that one tree can grow from that. That one tree, this is your business. This is where you actually like have the nice apples that actually you can sell to people afterwards. But you need all of the rest too. So this is a very important part. And this is basically also the main important part, because that makes everything happen for you, right? So don't like discount the people who don't pay you. They are equally important than everybody else in the whole landscape. The money, the people who support you, the people who buy from you, all of that, the people who support you, stuff like that. Also because they give meaning to your company, first of all, but also because they can suggest it to others, where they say, hey, this is a great guy. If you need to know something about that, go to that person. He's helpful, he's positive, he's like just like likes to do it in a nice way. So that is also where the business comes from outside of that landscape that you have, from people you don't even know, you didn't reach yet, right? So this kind of word of mouth marketing, as it's called, which is a very important part of social media, right? So for me personally, I find that's a good way. Not everybody works like that. Not everybody wants to do it like that. So there's a lot of different other ways to do that. But for me personally, this kind of landscape concept, I really enjoy that. I really like that, and it works pretty well, right? And I like to have this kind of relation also with the customers and with the community, right? Yeah, okay. I think it's time to go to the weekly challenge. It's now, we have talked for 1 hour 40 minutes, so let's go and have a look at the challenge here. I have to find that first though. I had it and then I closed that window. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. It's right on the top. So now I need to switch over. Did I miss any messages? No, I didn't. Okay, cool. All right, so there is my screen. Facebook has changed their layout again. And it kind of, at the moment, it looks like I'm looking at a page that is kind of like a mobile phone page that's not working anymore. Something like everything is too big and everything is in a very strange relation. And for some reason now we have a huge part here that's completely empty on the right side. I don't know. And then on the left, I don't know. It's a very strange design at the moment. Okay, is this the first one? I thought there was something before that. All comments? I think it's all comments. Okay, cool. So I ask you to look at this video that I did. Wait a second. Let me look that up real quick. Olivio mood. There we go. Set the mood. So I made this video 8 months ago already, where I talk about how to change the colors and the mood in a photo to give it a different kind of expression, basically. You see, like the left, I'm not sure, can you see that? Yeah, the left is original, and then we set it to this kind of night-looking atmosphere. So let's have a look here what you did with that. The first one is from Kala, and we have the before and after in one picture, okay? Which is okay. It's not exactly like, it's better if you have the full photo so you can compare the same areas, but it's also okay. Hot and cold affinity photo. Interesting. So this is the before. The after is, it's very yellow, to be honest. I think I know what you like tried to do, although this already looks very nice and warm here with this kind of pink sunset. It's a little bit, I think, like blue hour kind of sunset. And this is very yellow, to be honest, like from the values, from the color you have here, which is kind of hard to get the colors right. But one thing you can do is when you, for example, if you put a gradient over it to adjust the colors, is to pick the color from another photo where you like the colors, that kind of warm yellow, for example, and you use that as an overlay, right? And to play with that, or to what you can also do, which works great, is to copy that photo, put it in the same canvas as the photo you want to edit, and then play around with the adjustments in the curves and in the color adjustments to get similar values. And you have the other one is on top, is the top layer, so it's not influenced by the adjustments. Pretty important, keep it on top. All the other adjustments below that. So you have a reference picture, and you can see, are the colors similar? Are the colors looking like have the same feel, have the same expression, stuff like that. So that's an easy trick to test if the result you're getting actually looks as good as you want to. Okay, thank you very much, Kana. Let's go on to the next one. Wow, okay, this is from Chris. Let's see what text he has written for us. Picture taken in El Raval, one of my favorite parts of Barcelona. Oh, wow, I've never seen this one in Barcelona. But there is a similar sculpture, like not a similar, I think it's a bull, but also this kind of fluffy, like pumped up look at the airport, right? Isn't it? Or no, it's a horse. I think it's a horse. I really like that. It looks really cool. Here the city demolished a part of the old houses to create a square that now is visited by a lot of young people. Maybe not known as the safest place in the city at night, but there's always Botero's gigantic Giga Cat. Oh, Botero's Giga Cat to watch over you. I think I know the area you mean. Is it like near the Modern Art Museum? Or some, although I don't know that area here. Not sure. Wow. So this is the original photo. Interesting. Very nice. And then this is our adjusted photo. Now, you can see in this picture that, first of all, like, of course, it always depends on what you want to do with the picture. But this is more like an ink blue here, not like a night blue. So again, try to have a reference photo. And also, of course, like I said, it's important what you want to create after also. Maybe you want to have an ink blue look for that photo. That's completely okay. But the second thing is you have here, it looks like you have painted with a brush on here to create a mask. And this is like you can see in the background, it creates this kind of halo that just goes for a short range here, like a little bit over the sculpture, but in the shape of the sculpture. And it kind of looks like the sculpture is glowing a little bit. So that's probably not the best way to do that. So if you want to have the sculpture brighter, that's okay. Maybe if there is some light coming from the top, but then make a mask around that sculpture and then try to paint that in. And give highlights to certain areas and then make the other areas darker and try to shape it a little bit at the surface with these shadows. So it is not just one area that is brighter for like, very, very similar in a very similar way, especially also then around that. You can, of course, give the background a different kind of brightness if you want to, but then make a bigger gradient so it's not just stuck to the shape of the sculpture, and also make that in a way that makes sense with the light that you find in the photo, right? Because there is not really like why is the building like lit down here, but then a little bit higher it's completely dark, right? And there's no street lights or anything that would like make it happen like that, right? And also you can see here there's a little bit brightness here, but then suddenly it becomes dark down here. So that's a little bit strange. Yeah. And again, reference photos are a really good way to work, to see, to control if the image has worked out in the right way. So here we have Lee's work, a photo I took of a mountain here in Colorado that I took a few years ago. Interesting. Is this an analog film photo? Because the grain looks very soft here, a little bit blurred. Doesn't look like digital grain. And the overall, the photo has a very kind of analog, with the colors, an analog vibe to it. So yeah, interesting. Very nice. And this is the adjusted photo. Wow, that looks rather apocalyptic. like maybe a mountain on Mars or something, or like the Earth after the fallout or something. It's very extreme. I don't think you wanted to create a sunset. If you did, the orange is way too intense here, way too like orangey. Again, a reference photo can be good here. But I think you wanted to have more like this kind of artistic, intense color expression. I should have maybe asked you to write a little description of what you want to do with the mood change, like what kind of mood did you create? Because now I realize without a reference to know what you wanted to create, it's pretty hard to actually give you feedback if that has worked out or not, because I don't know if this is what you wanted to create or if not. If this is supposed to be a sunset, like I said, it didn't really work out. If it's supposed to be like an apocalyptic photo, it worked out. It looks pretty nice. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Thank you very much, Lee. This is from Sharon. There we go. So she says, recovering from flooding the easy way. Some HSL shift and vibrant saturation last week had the second major flood event for this year, and these fields are currently covered in silt, mud, and brown grass. See images in comments. The fence in the foreground has just been replaced after February floods and are still standing but covered in flood debris. Wow, okay. So in your area, that's a common thing, that the fields are flooding every year. And then, wow, look at all that grass that is stuck in the fence. Wow, so everything was underwater, as it looks like? Ooh, that sounds rather scary. And this is the original, really? So everything went brown because the grass died from the water? That is surreal. Wow. It's a nice brown, to be honest. Interesting. This is the original image. Wow. Just for fun, thought I would offer a winter scene. Ah, interesting. Okay, okay. It rather looks like a black and white scene. I think for a winter scene, you would want to retain some color in some areas. I was thinking about maybe making a video about that, how to turn a landscape into a winter landscape. But in the background, in some areas, it actually works very well. But then in these areas where there's just a little bit of frost on it, maybe have some color back. So there's a difference between the frost and the snow and the actual nature. Because now everything is gray. It looks more like a black and white picture. But it is very impressive how you turned that original brown photo into a very like nice looking grass landscape, very alive grass landscape. It's pretty amazing. By the way, how is it that when you look at these like plants here around the water, they look very alive and happy in this photo, and everything is sticking up. It's growing into the sky with the leaves and the yeah. How is it that they are sticking up when they are completely brown and kind of dead and not like just hanging down? Interesting that it like just keeps the shape even if it's kind of dead. Maybe it's not dead. It looks dead if it's so brown. That's kind of surprising. And also that if there was so much water that everything is like flowing and getting stuck here in the fence, but these are just like standing up straight still. That's very interesting how that works. But here it looks like completely natural, like nothing has happened at all. Really amazing. Very, very good work. Really like that. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Let me see. Let me have a look at the chat. I can't see the chat right now. There we go. Chris says yes. Yes. What was the photo? I'm not sure what you say yes to. Please, a little bit longer sentence to help me understand what you're talking about. Like short sentences or individual words is very hard for me to relate, to understand what it is about. Oh wow, this looks very cinematic. Again, apocalyptic. Warmed the morning sunlight and added tilt shift for the interesting effect. That looks amazing. So this is the original photo is also pretty amazing. Of course, there's a lot of like fog here. Very apocalyptic. Very nice. Again, the orange is too intense. Take a reference photo. Also try to make a differentiation between where the sun is shining and you get this orange, and where the sun is not shining, and you maybe have more like a colder color, right? It doesn't have to be completely blue, but like it doesn't make sense that the shadows are equally warm, or in some regards, like down here, even warmer, even more orange than the areas where the orange sunlight is shining. So work in that regard with the brightness. So like, for example, with the blend ranges, you can adjust how much they affect the different brightness areas, like a luminosity mask basically is what the blend ranges are. I like the tilt shifts, really cool. It really reminds me of the Planet of the Apes a little bit, you know, the original, where they go around the corner and then they find the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, awesome. Okay, very nice. Thank you very much, Luke. Pretty cool. Ooh, what do we have here? This is from Niels, from a raw photo. Okay. Hi everyone. Laugh, contrast, color balance, highlights yellow. Interesting. Okay, so this is the, and this is the original. Interesting. So, but is it like the idea here was to make the image also a little bit more flat? Because it looks a little bit more foggy. When you like look at the photo, you think like, it needs more contrast, or maybe a little bit of dehaze or something. There's something like, you see over all of the photo, there's a little bit of this kind of haziness over it. So I'm pretty sure that was intentional, but it looks a little bit strange maybe. Did you maybe want to create kind of this vintage look? Because then it works better if you also adjust the colors a little bit more vintage, right? Right now it just looks like it needs more contrast. But I think what you wanted to do is maybe this kind of vintage look where it has less contrast, but at the same time the colors are a little bit off, and that creates a kind of this kind of soft classic look from analog photography, right? I think I also have a video about that. It's quite a time ago. Let's go to my channel here real quick. Let's see. I have, like, at this point, I think, yeah, there we go, analog film look. Yeah. I think at this point I have made a video about almost everything. It's really crazy. I think I've easily created over 400 videos about Affinity Photo so far. Let's see, what does I have a playlist here, this one. How many videos are in there? 420 videos. Wow. Okay. So let's say they have an average playtime of 10 minutes. That would be 70 hours of tutorials. Wow. Okay, that's a lot. Good. I was very busy in the recent years. Okay. But still, it looks pretty cool. Very nice. Thank you very much, Niels. I should really have asked you to describe the mood. That was not a great idea that I didn't do that. I just thought about it now. Bart says, I found this a very instructive challenge. Thanks. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you very much for liking that. From a sunny spring day to a touch of Magical realism. Magical realism? Is that a thing? Magical realism? Might be an art form. It sounds interesting. Magic realism. Magic realism is a style of, literally fiction and art. It paints a realistic view of the world by also adding magical elements. Is Harry Potter magic realism? Or do you mean something else? And some of us have watched everyone. Yeah, some of you really have. Like, there's some people I know from the very beginning of my channel. It's really amazing. Yeah. Wow. So this is the original. Woo, very colorful. I like that. Awesome. Nice scenery. And then you have like, is it like, I mean, it kind of, if you say magic realism, it kind of, if this is the Harry Potter thing that I'm thinking about from this Wikipedia article, kind of like, you know, this kind of what Harry Potter was that? What Harry Potter movie where he is on the playground and then the Dementors attack them in this kind of underpassage below the train, and there I think they have this kind of eerie light a little bit. Again, you have this kind of ink blue in the sky. So if this is supposed to be more of a depressing situation, maybe a different kind of blue, a more depressing, like eerie kind of blue would be better, because ink blue is most of the time a rather kind of happy blue. Again, a reference photo is good. In this case, if it's related to kind of a film look, just look up the film scenes and see what kind of colors they are using, what kind of shades of blue. You can also sample them and then compare it if you have the same kind of tones in there. So it's also a good exercise to do it like that. And it helps you also to understand colors, because at the beginning it's really difficult to develop a good eye for colors and how they look and how they feel and how to combine them. So taking reference photos from other photographers or from movies, whatever you are interested in to recreate, is a very good way to get a better understanding yourself, but also to learn from the masters in the field on how they combine and use these colors, and also what kind of expression they create with that. Of course, photography and film is different, but film helps you in the way because there is you have scenes that follow onto each other, so you can figure out more about the decision rather than with an individual photo. And you can see with a lot of films, like for example, the colors that are used in the scene are they are directly relating to the emotions that the character is going through in that situation. So you will often see, for example, in movies that they use these kind of depressing muted colors, more like a blue, of course, because it feels colder, cooler when the character has trouble. But then as soon as something positive happens and they are happy, everything becomes warm and everything becomes nice. Often you don't realize it because it's also embedded in the way the movie is made. So for example, let's say they are very sad and something bad happened because they lost their job or something. They are sitting inside, the curtains are closed, there is blue light, all the colors are muted, everything looks sad. Then a friend calls and he says, hey, we're going to this festival, it's going to be amazing. So they go with the phone outside in the sun, everything is nice and warm, the colors are popping, everything looks cool, and the friends arrive with the car to take him to this festival. And so the room changes, but also the color changes, so you don't really realize it, but before you feel kind of sad because of the colors, and now you feel happy because of the colors, and it has a very natural progression. So they trick you into, like, of course, relating and feeling these feelings, but you can learn a lot of that even for photography, right? Okay, let's go to the next one. Thank you very much, Bart. That was very nice. Oh, wow. Sandra has created a very nice composite here. Pretty cool. Let's read this. So Rosie the Beagle, oh, passed away. I'm sorry. This year she was 17. Oh, that's a good age for a dog. That's okay. That's okay. I think in this photo she was younger. She looks pretty young in that photo, which is really old for this breed. Yes, that's good. And the main mood I could not shake was how much she is missed. Yeah, I understand. It's really hard. Like, they are very much part of our lives and families, right? Yes, the picture is sentimental, but it is how we feel about this smart, sweet, silly beastie and how we feel about her. I don't know how I achieved it, but the goal was to show how much she was loved and missed. Yeah, that's very nice. That is really awesome. Yeah. That's very great. It's very important also. So this is the original picture. Ah, okay. So she's in a chair, very cozy, with the blanket and everything, having a good time. Very nice. And then you also combined that with some flowers here in a very nice way. And you also changed, like you can see, you changed the flower colors from this kind of like too loud, too like intense red, to the more softer and nicer pink here in the flowers, and they also have the same pink, so that's very nice. And interestingly enough, which I very rarely use, a bright vignette, which is good. Like sometimes, like in this case, a bright vignette is actually very nice. So yeah, this is also a way to use vignettes rather than a dark vignette, so that's pretty awesome. Very nice job, and it also, the perspective adds up really nicely. You can see it looks like actually the dog is lying in between the flowers, so it's pretty cool. Yeah. There's a little bit of the butt missing here in that, but it's covered with the flowers. Now, in that regard, what you can do here is make a better selection of these flowers and like put the dog in a way so it's kind of, it makes sense that the flowers are a little bit higher from the situation, so they're not like sticking out randomly in places where they usually couldn't, but like place the dog so that the flowers could go a little bit over the dog. And then also what you can do here is, so it perspectively looks very nice, but it looks a little bit like the dog is floating in some places because you didn't paint any shadow there. So just yeah, take a brush and paint a little bit darker down here, or you can set up a curve, pull it down to make it darker, and then invert the mask of that curve and paint these darker places in here so that you have a little bit of shadow below the dog. So it looks more like the dog is lying there, right? Very nice. Sorry for your loss also. Very cute dog. And yeah, it's just the downside of pets is that they don't live as long as we do. So there's always kind of, I have lived in my flat here for 9 years now, and already 2 of my cats died because, of course, I didn't pick them up as babies. I got them as adults, so they already had a certain age. And so yeah, this is just like, that's just a thing with pets, that they don't stay with us for our time, right? Yeah, so very nice. Thank you for that. Oh, that was already it. Okay, that's already it. Totally forgot about the shadows. Don't worry about that. That's all right. Okay, that's already the review. Let me refresh the page. Maybe there was some late entry that we didn't see. No, that's it for today. Okay, cool. Let me switch over here to the talk live. Okay, where is the chat window? Bloop. There we have it. Okay. Okay, that's it basically for today. Unless you still have some business questions or something like that that I could reply to or answer. Right now, I thought maybe at the end I can give you some book advice. Oh, if you want to have, like, of course, I like to read books, biographies of very successful business people. One that is very inspiring and happy and positive is from Richard Branson. He is the guy who started Virgin Music and then also a lot of other companies, Galactic, yes, Virgin Atlantic, which is the airline. I'm actually flying with Virgin Atlantic from London to LA. I'm really looking forward to that because I always wanted to know if the things he's writing in his books are actually true and his service is so good, right? And so like positive as he writes. Wait a second. Yes. The book is called The Virgin Way by Richard Branson, and he gives a lot of advice. He talks a lot about how he thinks about business and gives advice on how to build a business, stuff like that. It's at the same time biographical, and it is advice. He answers also some questions and also some unique insights into, well, how he makes things work or how the business mind works, which is pretty good to understand that, to get an insight into that. It is, if you have no experience with creating your own business, some of these things sound a little bit abstract. It's kind of often, without the experience, it's hard to know what actually is meant by that. But when you get the experience over time, this will make a lot of sense. And I think also from his book, but also from other books, I got this concept of customer first, right? Which is very, very helpful. The reason why it is so helpful, because a lot of businesses build their business around the products. They create something they like and they want to sell it because they like it themselves. And that's a problem, because then you basically fulfill your own dreams and you just want to get your thing out there. And this is a hard thing to do. If you build the business around the customer, on the other hand, the customer is always there, right? So if you find out what to do for them, how to help them, how to make them happy, this is something that keeps like staying, and there is already an interest there, because of course the customer, the customer has this interest. As long as you can fulfill them in the right way, that's good. And also you can learn from your customers. You can't learn from your own product in that way, because a product is, if you build the product you like, it's only you. It's your idea in your mind, and you build your product. So at a certain point, you have explored who you are and what you can do, and this is basically the end. This is the limitation of that. But your customers are always changing, and there's a lot of them. So you can always learn from them and see what are new trends, what are new ideas, how has it changed? Just because a product was good 5 years ago doesn't mean it's good today. Interests change. Like, for example, I used to go to Starbucks. I really liked it. Now I never go to Starbucks anymore, because they kind of changed as a business. They had really nice cafes here, but now it's not so nice anymore. They changed their interior. I don't like it anymore. But also because my taste has changed. I don't want to sit in really crowded cafes. It was nice, like, I don't know, 15 years ago or something, as a student, to sit there with my friends and read books. But now I don't do that, so I don't need that anymore. So yeah, things change, right? What is the brand of your computer? It's not a brand. I build it myself. It's stupid, but there is a website in Germany, basically. I'm not sure if you have this in America. It's called Alternate. And Alternate has basically a PC builder where you say, I want to have this kind of CPU. What kind of motherboard do I need for that? What kind of graphics card works with that? So you click on one thing, and then they will show you the other options that are working with this choice you made. So you select the CPU and the motherboard, and then it will show you the graphics cards you can put into that, or the kind of RAM you need for that, right? And basically the way I did it is a little bit of a pain if you're outside of the computer things, and I have been because I used a Mac before that, is that you simply have to read about these things, or like look into online reviews, stuff like that. What is a good CPU? What is a good GPU, like a graphic card, basically? How much RAM do you need? What is kind of a good drive for that, stuff like that. And for me, the requirements are probably a little bit different, because I not only do photo editing, but also I do video, which needs a lot more RAM, but also I play video games, which needs a good graphics card. So maybe you don't need that kind of stuff that I have, right? And also my computer is about 4 years old. It's kind of getting time for an update, maybe in 1 or 2 years, I'm not sure. It's good that computers now hold longer, which the reason for is we have reached the physical limitations of how small the what is it called again? Inside of the CPU there are transistors. We have reached the physical limit of how small transistors can get, and so for the recent years we didn't have that huge of a jump in computer power anymore, and this is why with a 4-year-old computer I can still, for example, play the recent video games. Before that was impossible. You had to buy a completely new system every 2 years. Now I'm good with a 4-year-old computer. It's really crazy. But to tell you, I have a Intel Core i7 8700 with 3.2 gigahertz. That was at that time the best CPU for the lowest amount of money. So I never buy the best on the market, because you just waste your money and the prices are going down after a short time. So I buy the best one from 1 or 2 years ago, because that will still last you a long time, but the price is much, much, much lower. And for the graphics card, I think I have a GeForce GTX 1660. Let me. Oh no, this is not that. Where can I look that up actually? Ah, there we go. Let me see. 1 second. Drivers. No, doesn't it say it here? I thought it would. Check for update. Doesn't it tell me anywhere where? Oh, there it is. Yes, it was correct. NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1660. AMD is, I think, now a little bit better, but I still like NVIDIA. Yeah. All right, that's it. That's my computer. Yeah, and then I have a SSD, of course, for my main work projects, because it's a lot faster. Today, you only want to have a HDD for your storage, not for your working, because loading programs, working on files, loading files is much, much faster with an SSD. Yeah, okay. That's it. I'm not sure if there's any more to a computer. I didn't care about the motherboard. It's just a motherboard that was cheap. So yeah. That's it. It's pretty easy to configure your own computer, and you can also ask others what would be good for that. All right. I think that's it. Let me look at the chat again if there's some other message. No, there isn't. What the hell is this? Okay, we have some boom. Okay, there we go. Move. Okay, was deleted. Right on. Okay, cool. So the first spammer ever on my chat. Awesome. I like that. I hope it's the last one too, but I don't think it will be. All right, so thank you very much for watching today, and see you soon. Bye.